So welcome. Now this interview is not for you if you have no stress, if you never react to life situations, or life, your teaching life, your personal life is perfect. But if you've got some stress, or you sometimes react as a teacher, or you sometimes feel overwhelmed, but you're really committed to being a teacher your students will never forget, this interview is for you. Now, Gillian Coutts is a leader in mindfulness who's worked with educators, educational leaders, and organizations throughout Australia, helping them to use mindfulness to bring out the best in their work and themselves. And she's going to offer you 3 tips that will help you reduce stress and unleash learning. So let's get started. So welcome, Gillian. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, William.
I'm super excited. I had mentioned before I was at a school recently, and I thought you're the perfect person to be interviewing right now. So thank you. So Gillian, the question I've got for you is mindfulness is a big topic right now.
Yeah.
I think we think different things of what it is. So can you help us understand what is mindfulness from your expertise?
Yeah. So from my experience and the research and work that I've done, mindfulness is really the capacity to be both focused and aware in any particular moment. So to be able to manage your attention, to be able to pay attention to what you're choosing to pay attention to, rather than to having all of the noise and things that might be going on in your head.
And so it's really present in many ways. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So why as teachers and educational leaders, I know you work with a lot of educational leaders around mindfulness, and why is that so important for the work that we do as educators?
So I think when you imagine, you talk about learning being unleashed by the ability between a teacher and a child, and in that moment between a teacher and a child, and that's when they're present. Like that, I think that the capacity to be able to create the conditions that really allow a child to be whatever it is they need to be in the moment without overlaying your own judgment or your own expectations or your own sense of perfectionism. I should be able to achieve X with this child, all of that sort of stuff. And just having that in the background as your intention, but letting it go and being present in the moment. The deliberate practice of mindfulness really helps you do that. And I guess to describe a bit about how it does that, because when you're practicing mindfulness, if you're doing like a daily training or something like that, literally often you're just focusing on something you choose, probably the breath, and you might do this for say 10 minutes or something where you focus on the breath. At some point you notice that your mind wanders, because we're all human and we've got monkey minds and they wander. And in the kind of practice is literally first the experience of noticing that your mind's wandered, and then the ability to say, hey, it's wandered, I'm going to choose to let go and come back to what it is I'm focusing on. So there's kind of 3 core skills you're developing when you do a practice. The first is the ability to be focused on something that you choose. The second, which is great in a classroom, because then it's the child or it's the dynamic or it's whatever is going on. The second is building up that muscle or neural pathways around meta-awareness, your ability to notice what your mind's doing in any moment, and be able to then start to also make an assessment about quality. So how am I thinking or talking to myself at the moment? So it builds up that muscle. And then the third muscle it's building is this ability to actually go, in this moment, is this helpful to me? Yes or no? Choose to bring it back to what I want. So if you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like I know so many teachers do, worrying about, like ruminating about a child or an issue that's happened in the classroom, then the ability to be able to go, actually right now, this is not helpful. I'm going to choose to bring my focus back to something that's important, that like my breath or getting asleep or whatever it is. Building up the muscles to do that, you can actually do that with the mindfulness training.
Really, it's self-compassion in many ways. I mean, really, the way you I haven't heard it that way. I just keep thinking it's a really self-compassionate process, so I can be at my best and be in response rather than reaction.
Totally.
That's why I feel that from you describing that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you've talked about, and it's really struck me, is you talked about this idea of getting hooked.
Yeah.
Right? And we all can get really hooked by drama at school, or something happens in the classroom and we are hooked.
Or you go into the staff room.
You go in the staff room.
Says something.
Yeah, bam. So what does it mean to be hooked?
Yeah.
And how do we use mindfulness not to be hooked?
Yeah, absolutely. So hooks when you sort of find that something happens and you immediately react, and you can be 3 or 4 minutes or seconds into like this drama that's unfolding in your head. That's being hooked. It's like when what you're experiencing is so close, you're so caught up in it that it's right up here, as opposed to kind of being able to sit back and go, oh, look at that. That I'm having an emotional reaction to that. And what's really lovely about the practice, the mindful practice, is it allows you to get that, when I talked about that meta-awareness muscle, it allows you to build that up so you can see, I'm walking into the staff room, I can see something unfolding that's going to really get under my skin. And you can go, wow, look at that. I'm going to be it's going to be under my skin. But your experience of your awareness is so much bigger than just that frustration. It's a bit like, I heard someone describe it as like when you put salt in a glass. When you put salt in a really small thimble, it's really concentrated and really like salty, right? But if you put salt into a bucket, the same amount of salt, the salt's there, but it actually doesn't impact the taste of the bucket. And I think that's what the mindfulness allows you to do. You can walk into the staff room, you can see something that really frustrates you, but it doesn't colour your whole day. It just allows you to go, wow, that's frustrating. What do I choose to do about that right now?
You know, my partner and I meditate most mornings, and what I've noticed after you said the hook, because I hadn't thought about that before, I've noticed that the more that I meditate every morning, that if there is that happening, it's lodged in my body, the choice.
Yep.
So there's this, it's almost like a door that I know is there that I can go back to not react, because I can react. I can react, being a human being.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot to react to in schools. I mean, we've got all these students and families and parents and staff, so
it's a really complex, busy system. Yeah.
So what are your top tips for educators and educational leaders when it comes to mindfulness? What would you recommend we do or think about, or maybe even tools that we can use? I'm going to take notes maybe after. What are your recommendations?
I think the first thing is to take a breath. I mean, and it's so easily said than done, but the physiological benefits of literally the long out breath, so the activating your parasympathetic nervous system. Like we often say to kids, like, take a deep breath, and they go, but what they're doing is actually activating their sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. And so that's actually escalating the situation. If something happens and you need to be able to calm yourself down, that long deep breath out is a really good way of literally activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So taking a breath is number one.
So is it all the way into our body? The breath goes all the way in and then all the way out, the way you describe that. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So, but you start with the long out breath rather than the in breath.
Okay.
So it's like a big sigh.
Good.
So that can be really helpful physiologically. Yeah. The second is to actually try and experiment during your training where you might try something. There's lots of great apps out there. Any that are about focusing on what you choose. If your mind wanders, bring it back. That sort of practice allows you to really develop those muscles around unhooking and being able to observe your experience. I mean, Viktor Frankl talked about that space between stimulus and response, right? Being that moment of choice and freedom. And I think that the capacity as an educator to be able to be agile and move about the classroom without being hooked on things that actually don't need you in that moment, but there are other things, other moments of learning that you could unleash are really powerful. Yeah,
fantastic. I love the choice in that too. We know we talked about it earlier, is that we teach who we are. So if that is the truth, which is the truth, then any way to bring out the best in who we are as educators makes a huge impact.
A huge difference.
And we don't have to be perfect.
No.
But I love that you keep saying it's a muscle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really powerful. It's a muscle you just have to keep working on so that it's there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And I think one last sort of tip, I think, is, so if the practice and the breathing is creating the internal conditions for you to be focused and aware, the other thing is about creating the external conditions. So as much as you can, when I work with teachers and leaders in schools, it's about turning off any alerts on your phone, anything like dings on the computer for email, anything like that is going to be pulling your attention away from what you're choosing. And I think that I've had a teacher say to me last week that she'd turned off the alerts on her phone because she used to hear it. And she'd be in the middle of a class and then she'd hear it and then her mind, she'd know that her mind was off with the phone. And having done that, she hasn't missed, nobody's died, there's been no world peace. Sometimes there's a message from a parent saying my child's not going to be at school today, but she's on class.
That's right.
They're not expecting her to answer that in that moment. It's okay. So that can be, thinking about how you create the external conditions for focus and awareness, both for you and for the kids, is really important.
It's the perfect transition, and I'll show you why.
Yes.
So we've got a question for you. I told you my partner and I meditate every morning, most mornings. That's our stress reduction and also trying to bring out the best in our mornings. So our question for you is, what do you do to really lower your stress? and bring out the best in you. And so we'd love you to jump onto the comments in the blog and add those and share some inspiration. While you're there, you can grab our free ebook, The Ultimate Classroom Setup Guide. One of the things you just talked about is, when you've got your classroom set up well, it's one less distraction, and that book's going to show you exactly how to do that. So, Gillian, I thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We could talk for hours about it. I'm going to really leave with this hooking and the choice and the muscle. So I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And we thank you for the work you're doing in the world. This is not about perfection. It's about positive progress, right? And we will see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.